Hi, welcome to Luxury in Moderation, where we appreciate the finer things in life without going overboard. My name's Joanne, so welcome back. In today's video, I would love to talk about some observations of Hermes boutiques that I've been to. I've decided that the biggest difference in the boutiques that I visited recently is whether they are a flagship or a non-flagship store. So let me first share what the boutiques are that I've been to, and then we can kind of go into the details and the differences. So the very first boutique that I visited recently was the new Madison Avenue flagship boutique in New York City. So last year they closed down the Madison Avenue boutique that was existing. Those were actually two different boutiques. One was a women's side and one was a men's side, and they were actually facing each other on opposite sides of the street. They closed those locations and they created one large flagship that was 4 stories, I believe, and encompassed both men and women's styles. The next stores that I visited was a Hermes boutique in Tainan, Taiwan. So that's in the south of Taiwan, and it was located in a very big mall. The next boutique that I visited was the flagship in Taipei, Taiwan. So Taipei is the main city in the north of Taiwan, and they actually have like 2 or 3 Hermes boutiques in Taipei, but I went to the flagship location in a very high-end mall. And then the very last boutique that I went to recently was the Miami boutique in the Design District. And then of course I do visit my own boutique in my own city, which I wouldn't count as a flagship. It's the only boutique in my city. So everyone in the city has to go there basically if you want to shop Hermes, but I wouldn't count it as a flagship. So I would say we have 2 flagship stores, 2 non-flagship stores, and then I think the Miami boutique is kind of a split between the 2, but more leaning on the flagship side. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's start with the Madison boutique in New York City. The way they redesigned it was super reminiscent of FSH in Paris. Faubourg Saint-Honoré in Paris is also multiple stories, so you take stairs to go up levels or an elevator. Even though the layout is kind of different, you know, it's the kind of, I think they definitely modeled the new Madison boutique after the Paris one. And the most striking similarity is the attitude of the sales associates that are in the boutique. By this, I mean that they're kind of standoffish. They're not the most welcoming, but I do believe that this is because the flagship stores get a lot of tourist visitors that don't necessarily buy or that are just, there to look. They're just curious what the flagship looks like and not maybe intending to be serious shoppers. And so I do feel that the main difference between a flagship and a non-flagship Hermes boutique is how standoffish the sales associates inside are. If you can kind of imagine the day of a sales associate in a flagship boutique that gets a lot of, press or interest from tourists, a lot of people are just walking in there to look around. They want to see the things on display. They want to see bags on display or whatever they can find, right? But they might not necessarily want to buy that day or have the means to buy, and they don't even necessarily want to talk to an associate. Sometimes I really like to just window shop and not feel pressure by any associate approaching me. So sometimes that doesn't annoy me when someone just doesn't seem like helping, when no one kind of approaches me to ask if I'm looking for something. Of course, it's nice, but sometimes I just want to be left alone. And so the very first time that I entered the New York City boutique, nobody came to greet me. Nobody said hi. I think the first floor, there was a lot of men's things. So there was like a men's counter with men's ties. I was walking past, seeing if I could find anything cute for my husband. There was a sales associate standing right there behind the counter, and he was just like looking all around, not making eye contact, not smiling, not greeting me or anything. And he just, let me walk on by as if I wasn't even there. So obviously I did feel a little bit like, what's up with him? Like, I don't want to feel invisible, but I was, not surprised because that is actually how I was treated at FSH as well. So as I continued to walk slowly around the Madison boutique, just starting from the first floor, walking through every section, I got to the second floor, I believe, and saw all the tableware. I was able to see, they had a ton of things on display. It seemed like a wonderful stock selection, at least on display. I don't know if they would be willing to sell everything on display. Sometimes they're like, oh, that's display only. But at least in terms of what I saw, it did seem like there was a ton of items there. And I think that's the main advantage of going to a flagship store, which is that you can see a lot of things in person, where a non-flagship store might not get the stock, might not have any units to display. Even though they might want to sell you something, they just don't have it there in the store so you can touch and feel in person to really, experience the item before you place an order. So the last thing I'll say about the Madison boutique is on the top level is where they have all the bags and small leather goods. And they do have a ton of bags on display. They have a lot of Birkins and Kellys and very special pieces, all behind glass. You're not allowed to touch. Those are definitely for display only. I had wanted to buy a little rodeo charm for my mom when I was there. And so I approached this guy at the counter and I asked him what the process was. He said there was an appointment process, so he could put me on the list. He said that the wait would be at least 20 minutes, and I had time that day, so I could just, walk around. He asked me if I wanted water. He went to get that for me. So they have kind of instituted this appointment system for anyone who wants to look at their bags or small leather goods. I ended up waiting for quite a long time. I think at least 40 minutes or almost close to an hour. And I was pretty bored because I wanted to stay at the top level and not wander around in case he couldn't find me. At one point, I did have to go to the bathroom, and he said at that exact moment that he was looking for me, I was in the bathroom, and so he had to give my appointment to someone else. So it's like I wanted to stay in his line of vision so that he could call me when a sales associate was available. But anyways, when I went and asked for a rodeo, I asked for two, one for myself, one for my mom. They said they were only allowed to sell me one. If I could come back the next month, they would be able to sell me another one. But because of limited stock and they wanted everyone the opportunity to purchase, that they wouldn't sell me the same item. That gave me a little taste of the appointment system in New York City, and I wouldn't be surprised if they implemented the same appointment system as New York City as they do in the Paris boutiques, because it honestly seemed like they were managing the store in a very similar manner, where there was a sales associate specifically for the leather section that was managing appointments. I don't think there is the level of tourism in New York City as in Paris for the Hermes boutique, but there are certainly quite a lot of tourists going to New York City to the Hermes boutique, so I could see them implementing something like that in the next couple of years. So let's then talk about the Taipei flagship. And I got very similar vibes where I went in, it was kind of late at night. It was only like an hour and a half until they closed. And they had a stanchion, so they weren't letting just anyone walk in. There was a lady who came over, and there was me and another family waiting to go in. They said there was a wait list to get into the boutique, and since I had gotten there first, I could probably just walk in, but they took the phone number of the family waiting behind me so that they could alert them when the next available, I think, time slot or sales associate was available. So I was able to walk in, and it was 2 stories, I believe. There was actually a lot of sales associates just on the first floor chatting. And in my head, I was like, so if these sales associates are available, how come they aren't letting other people in to shop? I don't know if it was like a cleanliness thing or a privacy thing that they just didn't want a lot of people inside the boutique at once, but there did seem to be a lot of sales associates that were available but just weren't helping or didn't want to help other customers. I think in the New York City boutique, they probably have stations And that's probably what it was in the Taipei boutique as well, where, you know, there's a essay for the scarf section, or there's a salesperson for like the tableware section. And so they're not really selling you everything, but they're stationed at their category. Although the person who let me into the Taipei boutique, she was the one who kind of followed me around as I just browsed. I didn't end up buying anything. I wasn't really wanting to buy anything. I just kind of wanted to look around. But that was certainly the vibe that I got, where same thing as any other flagship boutique I've been to, they're kind of standoffish. They didn't really want to engage. Maybe it's the same thing where they have a ton of tourists just going to window shop just like me, and they didn't want to waste their time or energy on someone who wasn't going to buy. So now let's talk about the Tainan non-flagship boutique. And I actually went on Christmas Day because they were open. And there was a lot of fun activities that the staff did there to engage with customers who would come in. They actually hired a bakery from a different city to come and make little cake pops and other desserts like crepe cakes for anyone to grab as they came into the boutique to browse. And so I have a lot of photos that I'll share with you guys, a lot of really cute things like little Santas you could eat and grab, and they were like, oh, can I serve you some drinks? I did ask for, I think, some mulled wine, and it took a while for them to make, because I think anybody who came into the boutique was greeted by, you know, a whole group of essays, and one would take charge and kind of like be like, okay, this is my customer, and the next person would come in and the next essay would be like, oh my gosh, how can I help you? Like, do you want some desserts? Do you want some drinks? Like, let me serve you. They had a little photo area where someone would take one of those instant photographs of you next to their Christmas tree. And it was a lot of fun. They really wanted to seem to engage with the customer. So they were not standoffish like the flagship stores. You know, they were immediately helpful. Anything I wanted to try on, they're like, okay, yeah, let me go check. So they brought me out shoes and a bunch of other things. It was quite busy, but again, it was Christmas Day and a holiday. I felt like I had a good experience there, where it seemed like they wanted to help me. They didn't treat me like I was an invisible person. But my uncle, who actually shops at that store, felt like anytime he wanted to buy a bag or, you know, maybe something in higher demand, they would say that there's no stock, or maybe imply that you had to buy other things. So I don't know if I would say that they have good customer service, because in one sense, in the face-to-face interaction, they were very personable, they're very engaging. But it's not like they were bringing out all the products that, you know, people truly wanted, like the bags, and servicing you as the customer to be able to purchase that, right? So it's a nuance where it's like they may be very friendly to you in the beginning, but in terms of really getting to that luxury level of, you know, wanting the quota bags, they are still kind of pushing the loyalty part of it, which, you know, could just be part of their culture and something that all boutiques have to do. I find that anytime I enter my local boutique, there's always someone to ask me if there's something they can help me out with. So again, I'm not getting that standoffish feeling from my local boutique. And then the last boutique I mentioned is the Miami Hermes boutique in the Design District. A funny story, when I was in Miami, I actually saw the Average Rich Housewife there in the same beach resort that I was spending a day in, and she was so nice, you know, gave me dinner recommendations. It was wonderful to meet her. She actually recommended that I go to the Dior Cafe in the Design District, so I did that after visiting the Hermes boutique, which I might talk about in another video. But for this one, let's just say that I felt like Miami was a cross between a local and a flagship. So what I mean by that is that when I first walked in, no one greeted me. I was like, oh, is everyone gonna act like I'm invisible? Are they getting a ton of tourists that they just, don't want to deal with, and they're just gonna treat me like I'm not even there? But when I got to the second floor, there was a sales associate who was helping another family, and they were discussing if they wanted to purchase this silk scarf or not. And in that time, that sales associate did, greet me. He smiled at me. He was like, oh, let us know if there's anything we can help you with. So maybe there is another level of courtesy there, where they haven't gotten too sick of tourists. I think the other family that he was helping was on vacation as well. They did seem to have a European accent and, talking about souvenirs or something.
I also saw a lot of hair accessories at this boutique, which I have never seen at any other boutique, which makes me think that this boutique still has some flagship qualities because they get better stock than some other local boutiques.
I thought it was nice that, they weren't totally acting stuck up like the sales associates do at a flagship boutique. So that's mainly what I wanted to share in this video. If you have your own experiences, whether at a flagship or a non-flagship boutique, I would be very curious to hear about them. I wonder if my observations are what other people are experiencing, or do you feel like there is a difference between the different types of boutiques or not? But this is just some interesting information if you are intimidated maybe entering some stores, or you're wanting to go to some different boutiques in different cities. Maybe just kind of see, are they the only boutique in the area? Do you think that this city gets a lot of tourists where they could be turned off by new people that they don't recognize because they don't want to expend the energy and not have a sale? Just some things to research and notice as you continue to shop. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!